right, so I'm just caping out this Coues deer for a shoulder mount, and you really just want to pay attention to the symmetry. You want to make sure this cut right here is straight, and you want to give enough room behind the shoulder. Also, you can do it this one of two ways. What I like doing is just going here and getting in, and then just kind of tubing them out. You can run cuts up the back side right here if you want to, but it's not necessary. If you want to make it really pretty, you tube it. I don't like extra cuts in hides, even though there's bullet holes and all that stuff. I just don't like any extra cuts. So the biggest thing when you're caping is just using the tip. That way, if you make a mistake, it's never a bigger hole than a bullet hole. When you get real grippy, and you can cut real big pieces. So when you use just the edge of your knife, the tip, it really goes well. And just following the lines and trying to keep all the meat off the hide too. So what I do here is I started the foreleg here, and I just kind of start cutting around in here, and I'm just gonna tube it real quick, and then I'll meet with it back on the other side. And it's all personal preference too, however you want to do it, but I've never heard a taxidermist complain about a nice tubed out foreleg, but I have heard them complain about hacking up all over the underbelly and all that kind of stuff. So you really just want to use whatever leverage you can to keep that hide tight. It's another way to avoid mistakes, is when the hide's tight, the skin will just give for you, and you don't have to use hardly any pressure on it. And that way it'll come off, and there won't be a bunch of meat hanging to it. I'll just show you real quick. So what I'm doing is I'm just shoving this in, kind of seeing if I can get some daylight here. Keeping it tight. Cut a little bit there. And if you have time when you're skinning, then you can go slow. And we have a little bit of time. We're not in a rush. Sun's not going down. It's not crazy hot out. The meat's gonna be fine. All that kind of stuff. So I can really take my time and make sure that it's done taxidermist friendly way. Because the more holes, and not necessarily holes, but repairs, straight up repairs that a taxidermist has to do, that will cost more. So just using this. You don't have to go as far down the foreleg as I did. It's all however you want to do it in that way. So it almost worked its way out here. Yep, getting down there. So that's basically what you're looking at. You're never worried about there's no cuts. You let the taxidermist do all the cutting, and you'll be in good shape. So try to take everything out like that. And so I'm just gonna keep working up, making sure it's keeping that hide nice and white, free of any meat, following the lines, and then we'll get to the skull a little bit later. You can end it.
Okay,
So when you're caping for a shoulder mount, you want to start here and do what we call a Y cut. So this is very, very important, that there's two things you have to know. So you want to start kind of at the base of the skull, and you go from the antler down, and make a Y. But here's the trick. Don't cut on top of the fur. You're going to cut all the fur, and it's not going to look right. So when you make this Y cut, you know, you start up the backbone and you bring it right up here. Keep staying underneath it. Keep staying underneath it. It doesn't, this cut doesn't have to be like the craziest, most precise cut. Just the biggest thing is not to go on top of the hide, because it's a very sensitive area up in the skull, and that's what people are going to look at the most. If you cut some hide out below, that's not that big of a deal, but you really want to make sure that when you're cutting, that you cut going with the hide and not against it. So you just make a little cut, and then you can kind of grab it and bring it right up to the base of the antler. And what that does is it hides any seam from your mount. So you know you're not gonna see any cuts, any seams that the taxidermist sews when it's up on the wall. So this just hides everything back in here, and that's why we do it like that. So, yeah. All right, cool. And stay with the tip rule. When you're messing anything around the antlers is another very important strategy, is you don't go lateral with anything in the antlers. You don't cut here. You need to spread and do little tiny cuts. So you're just cutting at the base, and you can get in here close. So when you're messing with this, you don't ever cut in like this. Push back the antler, the fur right around the antler, push it back and make tiny little cuts. Tiny little cuts. You're not making very big cuts at all. Push it back and just make tiny little cuts, just using the tip of your blade. A lot of mistakes people make is they go right in and they cut all that hair, and like I said, it's very sensitive. Anything on the face is very sensitive. It's very hard for taxidermists to recreate that. So just go really slow around the antlers and be very careful on that. And just stay with the tip rule. Just use the very edge of your knife, and you'll never make a mistake that big or that noticeable. That's good. All right, so here's the point that I like to bring it if I'm in the field and I'm not in a great situation to work on it. Just bring it up to the skull. Be careful of the ears. You don't want to get too aggressive cutting the ears too far forward. And so I just cut it right off at the base of the skull. And I'm going to do all the face and finer work in camp when it's more controlled and I've just got a little bit better setup. With the hide, this is kind of what you want to look at, what you want to see. It's all clean. There's no big pieces of meat on it. There's no real meat at all. There's just some blood and some of the collagen and some of that connective tissue. And then you have both of these little shoulders or little forelegs coming out, tubed out, both of them, and they're ready to go. So the taxidermist has got a clean slate for you. They've got nothing going on here. They can make any cuts they want to. They've got enough room to stretch and make a full shoulder mount if they want to. And then with this, we're just gonna go back and I'm gonna make sure this is the really fine details, the eyes and nose and some of the ears, that I know I'll have a good setup, good lighting, and have some ice water, because we've been, you get full of adrenaline and you go chasing deer or shooting deer, and then you want to hurry up and rush through. You can't rush this kind of stuff. So it's best just to get it to this point, pack it in, take it back to camp and finish it off when you're in the right kind of mindset and rest it up. So that's it. That's field caping.